then I'm not going to tell the defense they can't call them that.
Kyle Rittenhouse is going on trial next week for the murder of 2 unarmed people in Kenosha, Wisconsin, murders that took place during the protests against the police shooting of Jacob Blake. But now the judge in that case is saying the 2 who were killed cannot be called victims, but instead they should be called looters, rioters, and arsonists.
The word victim is a loaded word, and I think alleged victim is a cousin to it. Let the evidence show what the evidence shows, and if the evidence shows that any or more than one of these people were engaged in arson, rioting, or looting, then I'm not going to tell the defense they can't call them that.
Now, in a minute here, I will get to a couple of opinions from 2 different lawyers, one more moderate or conservative, another more progressive, and their thoughts on all this. But first, right off the bat, clearly using those descriptions suggests that Rittenhouse was justified in his actions, clearly helping his case. Even though those victims were not charged for rioting, looting, or arson, and the judge claiming that it's a loaded term to claim they're victims, is it not loaded to claim they're rioters, looters, and arsonists when they have not been convicted of any of those crimes, were not convicted of any of that? And when Kyle Rittenhouse killed them, they were not in the process of doing any of those things. This is so completely stunning to me. Now, let me first go to the more conservative / moderate opinion here from a lawyer on CNN. This is Jeffrey Toobin and his take on this.
It's a very weird ruling. It is worth pointing out that there are some judges who don't like the word victim in their courtroom because they do feel it's prejudicial. It sort of assumes the conclusion of the trial. Most judges don't do that, but some do. This judge apparently does it in all his cases. That's one thing. And if that's a consistent policy, that's understandable. What's very weird is allowing this extremely pejorative, assuming the conclusion words of rioters and looters, which all in all should help Rittenhouse's defense a great deal.
All right, so in a second, I'll get to the progressive lawyer position or perspective here in a bit. But first here, I think this is good context for this conversation because here, Jeffrey Toobin claims that it's not abnormal for a judge to not want to use the term victim. So that part is apparently normal and fine. What is weird, though, according to Toobin and me looking at this all, is that replacing victim with a criminal descriptor. So if you think victim is a loaded term, how do you not see arsonist, looter as a loaded term? This clearly, once again, as I'll show you, this isn't the first time the judge has ruled in Rittenhouse's favor, but this once again is the judge ruling in his favor, helping his case. So here is an opinion on this from Elie Mystal of The Nation, who writes here, now there is a progressive argument for not calling victims of homicide victims at trial. I can absolutely see the argument that using the term in a case where the defendant claims self-defense lacks neutrality. It's a choice other judges have made, though I doubt that this kind of neutrality would be given to a black teen who gunned down people at a MAGA rally. Still, I wouldn't call Judge Schroeder biased for this ruling alone. I call Schroeder biased because at the same conference at which he decided to prohibit the prosecution from using the word victims to describe the people Rittenhouse shot, he said he would allow the defense to use words like rioters, looters, and arsonists to describe those same people. So here you go. 2 separate legal opinions, one from a more conservative moderate in Jeffrey Toobin, another from a progressive in Elie Mystal, and both come to the same conclusion here, that saying that not using the word victim is not biased in and itself, but that replacing that with rioter, looter, and arsonist is the actual bias taking place. That is the problem. Now, this isn't the first time that this judge, as I said earlier, has ruled in Kyle Rittenhouse's favor. So Elie Mystal goes on to write this, saying, moreover, Schroeder's bias has been evident in several other pro-Rittenhouse rulings over the past year. He let Rittenhouse out on $2 million bail, which is not cheap, but something Rittenhouse was able to crowdfund because enough white supremacists rallied to his cause. refused to make Rittenhouse turn over his address to prosecutors, then did nothing when Rittenhouse repeatedly violated the terms of his release. He also ruled that he will allow Rittenhouse's defense team to introduce evidence of police telling him and other armed whites, quote, "We appreciate you," end quote. And while I have no doubt that some racist cops in Wisconsin were totally happy to have another gun-toting white boy on their side, police permissiveness ordinarily has no bearing on a claim of self-defense. At the same time, Schroeder announced that he will not allow prosecutors to introduce evidence of Rittenhouse's prior disposition to shoot people to death. There is video of Rittenhouse watching from a car as people leave a CVS. He calls them looters and says that he wishes he had a gun to shoot them. The video was taken in August 2020, about 2.5 weeks before Rittenhouse shot up the streets of Kenosha. There are also photos from January 2020 of Rittenhouse posing with members of the Proud Boys. Both the video and the photos will be excluded, but the police patting Rittenhouse on the head like a good little white supremacist will be included. So, given all this context, it is clear that the judge is siding with Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, you can already make that claim just based on the ruling about the victims and calling them looters instead. You can make that claim alone just based on that. But given this extra context here, clearly, this entire time, the judge has been ruling in Rittenhouse's favor to help his case. Imagine the shoe was on the other foot. As Ellie Mistal here mentioned earlier, imagine it was someone shot, 2 people murdered at a MAGA rally by a Biden supporter. How do you think that would be played by these same judges, by this same judge? It's amazing. These victims here are not the ones on trial, yet they are the ones that can be called the criminals. Meanwhile, Kyle Rittenhouse gets every ruling so far apparently in his favor. And as it mentioned at the top of this piece, I hope everyone's prepared for Kyle Rittenhouse to go free.